Is so in Exodus, when Pharaoh hardens his own heart, do you think that when God hardened his heart, he's taking away the choice to repent and follow him?
All right, this is an excellent question. I think what we need to realize is that when Exodus talks about God hardening Pharaoh's heart, what this means is that Moses, the writer of Exodus, understands Egyptian theology. Because Egyptian theology said that when a pharaoh died, his heart would be weighed against a feather. And if the feather outweighed the heart, then the pharaoh would be admitted into the afterlife. However, if the heart outweighed the feather, Pharaoh would not be admitted into the afterlife, and his heart would be consumed by the demon goddess Ammit, who was a combination hippopotamus, crocodile, and lion, the three most feared animals of the Nile. And when Moses says that your heart is hard, he's essentially saying to Pharaoh, you're a bad guy. You're not going to make it, even given your own theology.
Just got to love how Christians just don't answer the question. But you also got to love how if this man was on the podium, was a true teacher, then he would have corrected the young man in the asking of his question. Because the young man started out asking the question on a false dichotomy. You see, the false dichotomy was that Pharaoh hardened his heart first. And then later on, the God of the Bible hardened Pharaoh's heart. But if you actually go back and you start and you read Exodus 4, when this whole story begins, in Exodus 4, when this God is showing Moses the magic tricks that he's going to be able to utilize to prove to the people, you know, the leprosy hand, the staff turned to snake, pouring out some water on the ground and it's going to turn to blood. When he first gave him the magic tricks, and then he tell him that, hey, Moses like, look, I can't talk that well. And God's like, don't worry about it. I got you. And then when God was about to kill Moses, because he hadn't circumcised his sons, and then his wife, the Midianite, had to chop off a little ping skin and put it on Moses, then this guy didn't kill Moses. It's an odd thing, weird part of the story. But hey, who am I to judge? Oh, my bad on me. So when you continue and you get down to verse 21, it clearly states in verse 21 that God told Moses that he will tell Pharaoh to let my people go, and that this God will harden Pharaoh's heart. And let me read it for clarity. Verse 21, chapter 4. And the Lord said to Moses, when you go back to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the miracles that I have put in your power. But I, meaning this God, will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. I think it's pretty clear and cut who does the hardening of the heart. And the next time that it talks about the hardening of the heart is not until chapter 7. But before chapter 7, in chapter 5, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart is what caused Pharaoh to also take away all the straw that is needed in order for the Israelites to make the bricks. And so if God, this God of the Bible, hadn't already hardened his heart, he would not have given the extra work, the extra duty of making them having to find their own straw. And the Israelite people get angry at Moses for this, creating a more volatile state. But even in chapter 7, the first part of chapter 7, that when this God, once again, let's see what happens. It's in it's verse 3, but we're going to start at verse 2. You shall speak all that I have commanded you, and your brother Aaron shall tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his land. Verse 3. But I, this God, will harden Pharaoh's heart, and I will multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. So we got 2 doses of Pharaoh hardening Pharaoh's heart. So like I said, the young man at the beginning of it starts with the misunderstanding that, oh, wait a minute, Pharaoh hardened his heart first, and then God hardened his heart, therefore taking away Pharaoh's opportunities. to be able to say, oh man, you know what? Your God is real. Your God is the guy. Hey, y'all go do y'all thing. Because originally he was asking just for them to go take a 3-day weekend to go into the wilderness and worship their God. He wasn't trying to actually exodus out of Egypt. He was playing a little mind game, playing a little game going on. It is not until verses 14 of chapter 7 where it talks about Pharaoh's heart being hardened, but not so much that Pharaoh has hardened his heart. It is chapter 4, verse 14, where it says, then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Now, this is this God saying that to Moses, as if this God himself wasn't the original one to harden Pharaoh's heart, when he himself was the one that hardened his heart. And now he's telling Moses, well, his heart is hardened. Like he ain't had nothing to do with it. He copping out like a straight up punk. Now, later on in that same chapter, after the blood, the river has been turned into, the Nile River has been turned to blood, and all the waters in Egypt have been turned to blood. And somehow they miraculously was able to get some water from the side of the river, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That is incredibly unscientific. But later on, when we get down into the later verses, verse 22, it says, but the magicians of Egypt did the same by their secret arts. So Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. So the Egyptians were able to utilize the powers from their gods that they believed in to do the same magic hocus pocus trick that this God did, readily admitting that the other gods existed. But this is why the gentleman on the podium then tries to claim that the god Ammon was a demon. In the Egyptian pantheon, Ammon wasn't a demon. Ammon was just the god. He was just a god who had a job to do. And his job was to be there at the afterlife. And if your heart was heavier than a feather, he would consume your heart and you would go into oblivion. It's as simple as that. There's nothing demonic about it other than the fact that Christians like to claim that any deity, any being, any understanding of any deity or being that's outside of God and his angels are demons. That's just simply not the case. That's your conscientious bias that's causing people to think that way, which is an absolutely incorrect thought process according to what those people at that time frame would have believed. They would not have looked upon Ammon as a demon, because the Israelites were polytheistic, henotheistic, well, they were polytheistic, but henotheistic, just like everybody else in that Mediterranean area was also henotheistic and believed that everybody else's gods actually existed. So the fact that he called him a demon is him putting his Christian bias on this situation. And furthermore, Moses wasn't saying any of those things because he understood the Egyptian religion. He was saying those things because this God told him so. But what we read in verse 21 of chapter 4 demonstrate that this God told him before he even got there, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. And he's hardened his heart 2 times. It is not until chapter 8 where it says Pharaoh hardened his own heart. But if this God has already hardened your heart twice, 2 times, got a double dose, overly medicated Pharaoh on a hardened heart medicine, then what other choice would he have but to maintain a hardened heart, because this God took away his freedom of choice, which is the actual question that the young man was asking that was never answered. But now you have an answer. So y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.